Hello, I'm Alex Blanford, at Blangry on Twitter, and I'm going to give you very much a whistle-stop tour of what digital democracy means and what it doesn't mean, which is probably a bit more important. So this is kind of what a lot of people end up thinking about with digital democracy, which is people on Twitter being a bit of a dick to their MP. You come out with something like this, and then the next tweet along will be them saying, "Oh, but by the way, I've got this fantastic petition. Could you sign it for me?" But this is kind of what people think about democracy. It's Athens. It's Pericles surveying the Pnyx in Athens. It's the representative democracy where it's the direct democracy where you could just turn up and speak. It's the Senate in Rome. It's the long Parliament in Westminster. But it's always a bit more complicated than that. And really, it's this. This is the pensions bill that's now in session. It's 94 pages long. It's a financial bill, which means that it's very much a minefield of difficult information, and you need to be a professional to understand it. You need to be a professional to interact with it. So, where have people gone with digital democracy? One of the big things over the last few years has been e-petitions. So in the UK, people forward it around Facebook, they forward it around Twitter. Sign this, they're going to do this, sign this petition. What does it do? It goes to the Backbench Business Committee of the House of Commons, who are, unsurprisingly, backbenchers, nothing to do with government. It has to be championed by an MP there. It's a non-legislative debate, i.e. it has no impact on policy, so it has no change prospects. And there have only been 4 discussed in the last year, out of however many have reached this requisite number of signatures. In the US, you get a response from the White House press secretary, and in the EU, there's an EU petition system that until recently you had to download this piece of software, host it on your own server, and then get a lawyer to check that the terms of the petition that you were putting forward were under the purview of the European Union. Change.org, and everyone like this. It's lovely, and again, but it's even less effective. There was a bit of an arms race that happened after the forest stuff a couple of years ago, and you had MPs who changed their email addresses because they got thousands upon thousands of emails. And there's a question of what happens with legitimacy with this. If you get so many, it's not as though that every MP's email address actually goes straight to their inbox. They have staff who check this before you get there. So what happened was you get researchers and diary secretaries and all the rest of it going, well, it's just copy and paste. There's no legitimacy to this. There's nothing actually really, it's just people on the internet. So, but it worked once or twice. It's an arms race. There are ways you can get involved, and there are ways you can interact. This is what Twitter's good for. Being funny. Ha 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 ha. This is what Twitter is not good for. Oh, I lost some images. Anyway, people are very rude to people on Twitter, and they just... I should point out, until last week, I worked for Parliament. The amount of Twitter nasties you get, just depressing. So, how do we adapt democratic systems that have come out of a tradition of 1,000 years of gentry bourgeois representatives, like this fella here, who is a Knight of the Shire, which, MPs. I'm trained as an anthropologist, so I'd say take a micro approach. We too often focus on these huge words like democracy and involvement. This is the Children and Families Bill, which went through a lot of things, but it went through the public reading stage, which was a manifesto commitment to the government. And what we did with it was we asked people to comment. And we didn't just say, here's a thing, comment. We made sure that you talk to the stakeholder groups. You talk to the people who are actually going to have something to say about it, rather than just, I hate this bill, or I love this bill. You want, line by line, clause by clause, comments in a way that's easy to interact with. Now, it was just a quiet one. It wasn't a huge piece of legislation. Well, it was quite important, but it wasn't the biggest piece of legislation you'll ever see. But lots of responses, especially to the clauses that were controversial, and debate happening in comments, and something finally where you're talking about the micro. Adjust your expectations. You're not going to get democratic involvement just from shouting at your MP on Twitter. You are not an MP. You're not going to actually get involved in the legislative process directly. It's a representative democracy. But there are smaller, more effective ways that you can. This is how many people professionally represent you, and they are professionals in dealing with legislation. Keep asking questions. All of Westminster's traditions are made up. They're not real. Even the ones that you think are thousands of years old, they're probably Victorian inventions to make the place look a lot older than it really is. Your MP has surgeries. Don't tweet Don't tweet in haste, repent at leisure. And this is a quote from Pericles. And I want to say, be hopeful, be optimistic, keep trying to get involved, and you might not always win, but you can always try.